And good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Kim Davis. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today is Tuesday, February the 20th. It is I guess it's the third week of Black History Month. It is the third week of February, and we're almost through the second month of 2024. I hope your 2024 is off to a great start and all those things that you said you'd do in 2024. If you didn't get them done in January, just start over. You got plenty of time. So welcome to Chalk Talk. As always, I'm super excited that you're joining me today. I'm excited about my guest who was able to join me. I've been talking about it for a while. You've heard her here before. She's a personal friend, but she's also just one of the absolute best people to have on the show, and especially for Black History Month, but really for any month. So I'm excited to be able to welcome I'm comfortable saying tennis legend and icon Zina Garrison. But before we do that, we have to also remind you about the people who help us do the show each and every week. Our good friends over at I Love Jinka, the turmeric paste. Remember, you can find it if you are in Texas. You can get it at HEB. If not, you can get it online at ilovejinka.com. And what is it? Well, it's great for all things inflammation. If you have something that's inflamed in your body, which really inflammation is the root of most of our illnesses, get a little Jinka in your life and you won't be sorry. If you happen to be in Texas and you are near an HEB, this is where you find it.
Here at HEB in the Healthy Living Department of Probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yeah. Look at that Jinka sale. Look at that Jinka.
So you can get it as a paste. You can take it as a veggie capsule. There's nothing added to it, but a lot of goodness and a super high level of turmeric. So check it out. Go to the website ilovejinka.com for more information. Also, Kimmy Treats totally restocked now at Sunshine's Vegetarian Deli over on Old Spanish Trail. We've got the vegan popcorn. We've got the Kimmy cookies are back in stock, and there are still some Kimmy bars. So if you are in Houston, you can get them at Sunshine's, or you can go to kimmytreats.com. Remember, you will not be sorry. You need some Kimmy Treats in your life. And without further ado, I'm excited now to welcome in our guest for today. She could talk about a whole lot more than tennis, but Zina Garrison, help me welcome tennis legend and icon, Houston's own Zina Garrison.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Got a little applause and everything for you. Welcome. Thank you for hopping on with me. I appreciate you. First of all, as we just jump into it, I know you're not always, it's kind of weird talking about yourself. So before we do that, what I found, Zina, is, I guess it means that, I don't like to use the word old. I guess we're just seasoned. When I run into people who are like not as familiar with your career, I'm always like, what do you mean? But I also understand because it's not as, they don't get told about it as much. So before we jump into that, I want to talk a little bit about just the state of American tennis right now. Your thoughts about it? I know we're always on the phone watching matches. It's exciting, but what do you think about where American tennis is, and especially some of the young African Americans in the game today?
Yeah, I think actually we're in a good spot right now with American tennis, both on the men's side and the women's side. I'm really excited about just Coco. I think I still believe, and I've talked about this a lot to you. I still think it's 21. It's going to be really when she becomes the person that I believe that she can become. But what she did at the U.S. Open just really opened up and let people know that she has so much more to offer. But the thing I like about Coco Kim really is she's not just about tennis, but it's what she brings to the game. And all great champions, as we know, they actually elevate the game in some way. And I think she's going to be one of those. And on the men's side, the American men finally have risen a little bit. It's going to be an interesting 2024 because a lot of them are going to have a lot of points that they're literally going to have to go and try to do better on. So it's going to be interesting. And I'm still hoping Francis will come on through, and I think he's having a little hiccups right now, getting used to the fame that has all of a sudden he is that one to watch. But I think we're doing pretty good. And my ultimate, you hear me talk about this all the time, Ben Shelton. I love that young dude. He is so amazing. And I think that I think Ben is probably going to be that one is going to finally win a Grand Slam on the men's side.
You know, we got a chance to, we knew his dad. You know, we saw Brian grow up. We had a chance to see Brian Shelton play. But, you know, one of the things, Zina, that we always talk about in this game of tennis, I tend to agree with you about Coco. She started so young. And one of the things that she seems poised to handle is the pressure. And that's the thing we always talk about, right? You know, people say, oh, well, remember Taylor, and she started out and she did well, what happened to her? Or Sloane Stephens, and what happened? And once the expectations exist, then the pressure comes. And that's across all sports, but I think we really see it in tennis. What is it about Coco, you think? Is it because of the foundation she has and her parents that makes her able to deal with the pressure and keep moving through it?
It's that grandmother. Her grandmother,
It's the grandmother.
is the backbone of everything. And you know, we laugh about it, we talk about it all the time, but your foundation really does come from older, wiser people that pass on great, amazing things that are going on. And her grandmother, from what I understand, was like one of the first Black women that actually was able to go into a segregated school. And so for her, it's just she has so many experiences that have been able to pass on. And, you know, it's just, I say Coco's an old soul, but more than anything, an old soul that is willing to listen to people that have become before her. And I think that's what makes the biggest difference. And the same with Ben Shelton. You know, he gives a lot of credit to his dad. And as we know right now, it's like giving, you know, a lot of people don't want to be coached by their dads and all of that. But for him, you know, he loves it, and he loves, you know, what his dad has already done. So I just give it up to those ones that are younger, but are willing to listen to someone older and wiser ahead of them.
It reminds us, Zina, and I'm talking with Zina Garrison. And if you just joined us, we're talking about Coco. We're talking about Coco Gauff, right? Not the singer. I'm sure you guys, if you're listening, you know that. Coco, who won the U.S. Open last year at 19 years old. And we're talking about Zina saying that she thinks she's going to really, when you say step into her own at 21, she's still performing at a super high level. But one of the things that we often talk about is not everyone really wants to be a champion. You may want to play at a super high level, and maybe I want to be a top 10 player for a long time, maybe a top 5 player. But being a champion requires something else. And it requires a lot of you, and it requires so much more than what happens on the court. Zina, help people understand, because when I've said that, they're like, what? Everyone, no, everybody doesn't want to be a champion. No. Why is that?
And it's interesting you say that. And Kim, you know, you've known me since I was 10 years old. I never wanted to be number one in the world. I wanted to make an impact, and I wanted to be the best that I could possibly be. Now, I would have took number 2. I got number 4. But the reason why I didn't is I did not want all the pressure that would take in order to be number one in the world, all the other things that you have to go through. I'm an introvert, so I don't really like to be out in front of too many people too many times. So for me, I wanted to be the best that I could in my sport. So when you say that, it's like there are only a certain amount of people, and I use Serena Williams as an example. Serena's the baby. Serena loves the attention. Serena loves everything that goes on. She loves breaking barriers, you know, and or Billie Jean King or Martina Navratilova. These people were number one in the world, but they are looking to change the world, not just within tennis, but around everything else that went with it. I personally, I just want to help the youth, and that's my biggest thing. And I knew that I needed to have a platform to do that. So
I want to talk about that a little more too, because when somebody hears, well, I didn't want to be number one in the world, it doesn't mean that I didn't want to work hard. I didn't want to do what it took. it just meant that all those other things that come with that level of fame, perhaps, is not what was suited for the life that you wanted to live. It didn't mean, I mean, I don't know if people realize this, but your career that spanned from what, 82 to 96, 97 is a
Yeah.
lengthy professional career. You were in the top 10 for most of that, and you ranked
Yeah.
as high as number 4 in the world. Those are feats that a lot of people never really accomplish in tennis.
Yeah, I sometimes, now that I'm getting older, wiser, I think back.
Seasoned, dear. We don't say older,
Season. I'm
seasoned.
sorry, season. It's very interesting because then you start thinking about, and for athletes, we have a tendency to say what we did not accomplish rather than some of the things that we accomplished. And I was just thinking back when I first became professional on the tour in 1982. I literally left my prom and literally went to the French Open, played my first professional tournament, came on the computer like 27, 28. That's like unheard of.
Right.
I was the number 1 junior in the world. And, basically what I'm saying is I've had a lot of accomplished 3 major Grand Slam that I won for mixed doubles. Not an easy thing to do, a gold medalist. But I just have to sometimes realize and sit back and say, Zina, you know what? You worked hard. You did as much as you can do at that particular time, and you have accomplished a lot. And that's just hard, Kim. It's hard for
Yeah.
athletes to be there in the moment. You always want to do better. You always feel you can do better. But sometimes it is just what it is.
And sometimes it's important for other people to kind of help remind us of what took place. So I don't like to gloss over the span of your career and the level you played at for so long, right? Because being ranked in the top 10 is super high. Kevin Walker, we know what high school she went to. He went to Sterling, she went to Sterling, Kevin Walker. But Zina is also the first Black woman since Althea Gibson to win to get to the finals of a Grand Slam in 1990 when you played Martina Navratilova in Wimbledon. That's the first time anyone had gotten there. So it predates what Serena and Venus did. It takes nothing away from them. But I think that people who are more contemporary don't understand what happened before Venus and Serena. And those times are very important. And you also had a very close relationship with Althea Gibson. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's so interesting, and it's funny how we always think about even more when we're going, Black History Month. But I think about like how blessed I have been to be in the presence of so many greats. But people know Althea Gibson from a book. I actually had an opportunity to sit and talk to her, and this story, Kim, but I'll tell it. At her funeral, I literally got up, and cause she used to always say to me, you need to work on your serve. You need to work on your serve. And my serve was never that big. So I'm thinking she literally meant the serve. And I remember the night before getting ready to speak at her funeral, it was just like someone was speaking to me, and it was like her. It's like, no, it was never about your serve. It was like working on your serve as serving people. And I remember, relating that, saying that in that speech when I got up and had an opportunity to talk at her funeral. And recently someone reminded me of that when I was having one of those low moments and low time, and someone reminded me of what I said at Althea Gibson's, and let me know that I have done a lot of great things. And that I must keep on, uplifting myself even in the tough times. And, it gets a little tough for all of us sometimes, but I think it's very important, especially during Black History Month or just each and every day, that we focus on the things that we have done, not in the things that we wish we could have done.
One of the things I think is important to, you talk about Althea Gibson, and that time you had a chance to sit with her. I think about some of the people we met playing at McGregor Park. We met the Earl Campbells, and that's how we first got to know the Calvin Murphys, and just a lot of the people that came through. They would come over to the park, and we had before they were really called celebrity tournaments, we had those moments. John made sure that we knew a lot of people, but they weren't really celebrity. They were just people that we got a chance to know. So we didn't really grow up with the being enamored. Not that we lacked a level of respect for what they accomplished, but at young ages, we got a chance to meet Arthur Ashe. And I remember one of the last interviews he did, when I was doing a show on BET, he was on, and I had a chance to interview Arthur Ashe, which
Yeah, it's very interesting because I just, you know, the history of McGregor Park, people have no idea. We actually had the opportunity to live in that time and period when there were so many great things that happened, but more than anything, the birth of the program that John Wilkerson and Ed Arnold and people like that were able to for tennis that was birthed there. And as you said, you know, Kim, we had the opportunity to meet so many different people, and we were never allowed to look at people like, they're high at what they do. It's like they're people. They just happen to work hard. And I know that both you and I and the other people that have grown up in the program that we did, it was a norm for us. So we wanted to do better and be better, because we had people that would come over and share their experiences with us, making sure that hopefully we don't go through, negative situations. And I fight each and every day, as well as you, as well as I, to keeping the history in McGregor Park, because as we know, we're in a time now where people are trying to wipe out our history, and that literally is that McGregor Park is one of the most precious things that can actually have happened in Houston, Texas. I mean, you had the Five Slammer Jammer. You and I both watched Akeem Olajuwon not even be able to dribble at all. And I tell that story all the time, and the people are like, "What?" I'm like, "I saw him when he
he
first
couldn't
got
play.
here."
Yeah, he was not what we got a chance to then see him as a champion and ultimate Hall of Famer. But I also used to tell people, if you play tennis in the States and you are a young on a program with Black kids, whether it was Chicago or whether it was in DC, they brought their kids to play at McGregor Park. Everybody came through McGregor Park. Venus and Serena came to McGregor Park. I mean, you didn't accomplish things in tennis as a Black tennis player and not come through McGregor Park. And so we got a chance to interact and know so many. I remember when you first saw Venus and Serena, you said early on, it's going to be Serena. I'm like, but they're like 8 or however old they were, 6 or something. You said, what was it when you saw them? You knew they'd both be good, but what was it that made you know Serena was going to really be the one?
She demanded attention right away. She could barely see over the net, and Venus was still had grown pretty much. It was much taller than Serena, and she was literally crossing the net, intercepting the ball, which we call poaching in tennis. And the thing that really struck me more than anything, and I can see it like so visually, like, she was like, "Yes!" Like, raising her fist, like, this is it. And I'm like, this little young girl is demanding attention and was not stopping. She was playing a pro-am. And that's what I have always loved about Serena is just, Venus has this like very calm championship and material thing that's within her. But Serena has this like, in your face, you're going to take me, I'm here. And she is still today breaking barriers in so many ways.
Talking with Zina Garrison, and we're talking about tennis. We're going to move on to something else in a moment, but there's just so much in tennis. You got a chance to watch them play as young people. You also had a chance to coach them, Fed Cup, Olympics. What was it like after you played and then being able to transition and coach? I know that you had a very close relationship. We got a chance to know Billie. You know her obviously far better than I ever will. She's a personal friend and mentor. What was it like to play on those teams, Fed Cup, and then the Olympic team, and then coach those teams?
Yeah, Kim, I'm glad you meant that. Billie literally has been my mentor for years, and I absolutely love her. Even more because she's continually asking me to learn and be more and to strive. And she's always, Zina, what are you doing? What are you doing? Help those kids, But she literally taught me about, once you started to become a coach, you had to step outside of yourself. It's not about you playing anymore. And that's a hard thing a lot of times to make that transition from a player to becoming a coach, because it's not about you anymore. It's literally about what you can do, how you can help others to motivate them to be the best that they can be. I really had an opportunity to be blessed by two amazing coaches, and that's Billie Jean King and also our coach, John Wilkerson. John always taught each one of us individually how to be the best that we can possibly be. And you have to, as a coach, you have to be able to, like I said, put your stuff aside, but figure out what can motivate that person to be the best person they can possibly be to achieve what they want to achieve.
You know, you mentioned John, and he used all kinds of tactics, right? I remember playing in a tournament and him saying to me, seriously, you gonna let the girl with the in the feeler beat you? And I was like, he said, the girl with the bow on her head, you gonna lose to her? And I was like, no, because he just whatever it took, right? And so when we were young, Fila was it was the brand, right? It was the elite, it was a brand. And so he's like, the girl from the country club in the Fila with the bow on her hair, that's what you're gonna do. And because we didn't like, no one likes to lose, but it was just really not accepted. And when he put it in those terms, you would go back on the court and you would not let a ball get by you, right? Because he would make you feel like, I can't possibly, lose to this person. And so it was him knowing what it took, how to reach people, what buttons to push. And so those things are super important. You got a chance to coach them when they were younger, and you also got a chance to coach Serena later in her career toward the end. And I know that one of the things that you share that I think it's okay to say is that just the level of what she had to do, her life is that being a champion, you were like, oh my god, the requirements, right? All the responsibilities she had off the court to maintain that, not just as related to her playing, what it took for her to be fit and play in her team, but all the other stuff, you were like, oh my gosh. Even you who've been around the game your whole life, it was still surprising.
Yeah, and actually, I remember calling you and saying, Kim, this is like crazy, because I literally had no idea all the things that she had to do off the court, and, the way she basically just managed it all. And one thing that I will never forget taking away from that is she wake up early, she ready to practice, she ready to do. But when it's time to stop practice, like 4 or 5 o'clock, do not call her about tennis. And she puts everything into it. And I was just thinking, like, this is this is like a new age true champion that literally has learned how to prioritize her entire life, from her workouts to her keeping her body fit to her practice to her commercials to her meetings and everything. But when she needed her downtime, it was all about her downtime, and she really got that. And she gets it.
She gets it. What is it that has surprised you most in this era, this age of tennis? And I say that about players. And I know we always, we see players, we see their games and their strokes. And you mentioned Francis earlier. I think we both are big fans of Francis Tiafoe. You know Francis. I only know him from afar. Want to see Francis get there, right? I thought it was last year was going to be a breakthrough year. I think he's, like you said, now he's dealing with the pressure of expectations, because it's the same thing that we'll talk about with CJ Stroud. Now there are expectations. Yeah. What do you do when people now expect for you to produce at another level? What has surprised you most about, players or a player as you've been around this game your entire life?
I think the biggest thing for me right now and it's funny because I was just talking to Billie Jean King about this as well, is like, it's not every one of them is selfish, but they have become selfish in a way that I don't even think that they realize how privileged they are. So just to constantly keep talking about, we need more money, we want money, we want this, we want that, or whatever. But what has surprised me most is still a very hand few that realize why they got there, because it was someone else that helped you up. So
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
turn around and do the same thing. And that's the part I literally pray about every day, that there is a couple that literally would get it. And probably have a lot of agents after me for saying this, but you have to build an all around person. So,
Yeah.
agents out there, stop just being so selfish about what you can get at the moment, and help that person become the best person that they can become in all levels. And you and I talk about this, whether it's the
Yeah.
media, whether it's your eating, whether it's making sure that you worship the way, and become a complete package, and stop worrying about what's about that person at the time. And that means longevity.
Yeah. It's cool. It's interesting that you say that. And I think about it when you mentioned agent, I think about a guy that Kennard,
Yeah.
right? Who's been a friends with Andre Johnson and who was there with him when he got the knock. He's been around a long time. And you often hear me talk about some of these current day players, regardless of the sport. And I'll sometimes say, man, their team's not very strong. Let me say it in a very nice way. And people go, what do you mean? Yeah, he's got a great contract, but it's beyond that. And yeah,
Yeah.
money's a lot, right? I mean, listen, would love to have a piece of some of the money, but is it really happiness? I mean, I look at some players who've got all of that. They've got the money, but they're not really accomplishing what I think what when you look at them and when you talk to them, what they set out to do. So yeah, I can just live this life and I can be happy and I can live with the fame, but I'm not really doing what serves me in terms of my passion and the people around me, my team, because they are only about the things that are the dollars. And so I'm getting
Yeah.
the dollars, they got the dollars, that's cool, but they're not talking about this long-term person so that when it's all said and done, I am fulfilled. Because if you're not, I mean, really, does it really matter how many millions and millions you have if you ultimately inside are not fulfilled and happy? I don't
Well,
know.
I always
I like to
think
find
about
out, but
I always think about it as, a lot of times we see people rise quickly to the top. And like you said, if their team is not strong, then if something in there is a little bit of a crack, then all of that goes away very, very fast. But if you build a person, and I shouldn't say build, but if you are working with that person for that person to become a very strong, overall, as our coach used to say, become a good citizen,
yeah.
um, is literally you're going to get a lot of longevity out of that person. And you can tell the people that have a strong fundamental background that is behind them, because they're going to last a very long time, much longer than instant success, and then you don't know what to do with it.
I remember this something that you put together several years ago. It was in 2011 because I had just left Channel 2, and it was a camp, and you and Lori and I took some young teenage girls, tennis players, to St. Thomas,
Yeah.
and we took them there for like a week, and it was a tennis camp, but it was about so much more than tennis. And that was such a cool. I was thinking about that the other day, and it was really about. I mean, then we spent time on the court, but we always talked about how the cultural differences for these kids growing up in a sport like tennis, it is a difference. Culture matters. And because I'm going to say it, you don't have to. I don't think the USTA has done a very good job of recognizing and dealing with the fact that there are cultural differences. And when
Yeah.
you don't address those, and because tennis is a sport where you are inundated and everybody that you're with, those are your competitors. There's no team like a football or basketball, and so the support is very different. And so now you're ingratiated with this group of people. And when there's nobody that really understands where you come from and who you really are, it creates another level of pressure and really I'm gonna use the word conflict. And so how do
Yeah.
you navigate it? And so we had this camp that we thought was cool. I mean, they didn't pay anything to come. And we did it back then. And it'd be great to do it again. Of course, obviously we can't, unless one of us wins the lottery, we can't do that again. But it was a really cool experiment and experience. And so, what made you decide to do that?
Well, it's because we had it in our own right and didn't even
Yeah.
realize that we had it. We go back to McGregor Park. We had so many, mentors that just came through, and so many experiences, all different types of jobs.
Yeah.
And so I always knew that that was our backbone of everything, was the fact that we were privileged to be around so many people that had succeeded in so many different things. And that particular camp, you're right, Kim, it was like so awesome. And one of the young girls there, Katya, and I
Yeah.
remember you were giving her media training, and she was wearing your ear out. And it's so interesting now, that show The Homecoming. She's a
Yeah.
writer for that, and she's gone on, and she's also worked with Reese Witherspoon, and all the things that she wore your ear out. She was there for tennis, but I remember she loved the media part of it.
Yeah.
And so you don't really know, tennis might be the opening gate for so many things, but you don't know where it's going to lead it. I mean, you're a classic example, to be one of the top sports analysts in the country, in the world, actually, in my opinion, not just because you're my
Aw.
best friend, but tennis opened the door for you, to do what you wanted to go on and do. And I tell this story many times, when we were roommates, and you would have all these stats all over the damn room and everything. That was before computers and
Yeah.
papers. But, because of tennis, I think I can say that you learn the value of, putting all you can into something you love, and then look where you are now.
Talking with Zina Garrison, yeah, Zina was like, "Are you really going to be listening to baseball on the radio?" Uh, I would have, stat sheets, and I'd watch games, and this was early in her professional career. I'd finished college and come back, and yeah, it was interesting. She was, yeah, our roommate experience is probably a book that we just can never write.
Or needs to be written.
Yeah, that's one of those stories that just needs to stay where it is, man. Because us and our neighbors, and we'll leave it at that.
Oh, okay. Maybe
But
you're
it
right.
was, yeah, maybe you're right. That might get us, so we could then have some more camps. But yeah, it was what you put into it. And we talk about McGregor Park. And one of the cool things too is, what I got at McGregor, I got a lot of it at home, in terms of the giving back. I grew up, that was important in my house and my family. It was necessary also at McGregor Park. We had to give back. It wasn't even an option. It
Yeah.
wasn't like something we had a choice in. And so that was a part of us. And so when we became adults, and now we, you get to the tour, you're on the tour, and we're in these places, and people that have a lot, and they didn't grow up like that. And it's hard for them to really understand the need to not give away all you have, but to pour into, like, genuinely, not just to show up for a photo op, but to really pour something into somebody else. It really does. It's super fulfilling. But when it's what it's just a part of who you are. So they need to get it, as we say, they've got to get it younger, because by the time they get to college, or they get to the tour, or they get to the league, whichever league it is, it's kind of late.
Well, it's funny you say that, Kim, because it's really not set up to be that, to get those lessons anymore. And you've heard me say it a million times about, all these different, like, academies, and also, the basketball, what do you call the ones where AAU,
Yeah.
which is a funny story. I had an opportunity to sit next to an executive AAU. I was like, I'm the wrong person. Like, please teach these kids fundamentals. It's like, on one end, it's all about getting the money to get the kids there, and the people. But if you're going to have an opportunity to reach young minds, it's very important to pass on the knowledge, so they will be able to, once again, have longevity in the sport and understand the sport. I just recently had the opportunity to run into a friend of mine, Jill Dykes, which you remember. Jill was the first one that started my tennis. She was the first executive for my tennis program, and she had a young guy with her. I think it was her nephew, and he plays soccer. And so she said, soccer or hockey, I can't remember which one it was. So the mother said, what could you ask Zina? She used to be a professional And he said, one thing would you tell me that would help me in my opportunity to move forward? I said, learn the fundamentals. And he looked at me and I said, the reason why I said that is because you have the opportunity that I did not have. You have so many videos and things that you can have right there in your phone. You can want to do something better in your sport, and you have the opportunity to visually see it over and over and over in so many different ways, so many angles. And so he said, fundamentals. I said, if you don't know the game, you can't play the game.
I love that. I was talking to someone, I forget who it was recently. We were talking about they had a kid, and they're like, I think I want them to play tennis, and what would you advise them to do? And I said, get somewhere and get a ball and hit the wall. To hit the wall, I said, because the wall ain't gonna move. And if you're working on your stroke and you hit that ball against the wall, if you're hitting the ball right, if your stroke is where it should be, if you're hitting at the right point of the racket, hitting the strings to the sweet spot, it's gonna come back to you. And you want to hit it to where you can hit that ball 100 times. I said, well, that's not exciting. It's fundamental. I said, but that's the key. I mean, how much of tennis do you watch, right? You've got to be able to not make errors. That's what they talk about, right? You've got to be able to keep hitting it back. And the wall's going to bring it back to you. If it goes off, that's you. It's not the wall. And they looked, I said, if you're interested, that's what they need to do. Get on the wall.
You totally understand that wall, because we couldn't even get on the court until you hit your 100 balls on the wall.
You couldn't even get on the court. Right. It is the fundamentals, and it's really applicable to whatever it is you do in life. Are the fundamentals intact? So there you are. The fundamentals, are they intact? Whether it's in your business, whether it's in school, if you don't have those down, then you're probably not really mastering what it is that you should be doing. I want to go over a couple of things we kind of glossed over, and I think it's important to mention. We talked about you being number 4 in the world. That was your highest ranking. You did win 3 Grand Slams in mixed doubles. I remember when you got to the quarters and beat Chris Evert. It was her last match. She was retiring at the US Open that year. I remember us being there. My sister Peaches was there. She was actually, I think she was living in New York at the time. And I was like, you started crying. And I was like, what in the world? So you win the match. Chris Evert, it was her final match, and Zina's in tears. Can you help the people understand what that was about?
It's taking years for me to understand it, but that just goes back to the way you and I were brought up, and the other people in the program, is like we understood the people that came before us and what they meant. Yes, Chris was a white girl that was playing the sport. Everybody loved her, but I got my first Chris Evert racket, and I was like so excited, and here I understood this was her last match, and what she meant to the entire world of tennis. I got that. I got it because, as people would say, I was an old wise soul, and I knew that this was going to be a monumental situation for the rest of our life. I had no idea that picture was going to be such historical. And I remember Chris is like hugging me and telling me it's okay. But the biggest thing, Kim, I remember is walking to that press room, and one of the guys said, do you feel like a villain? I'm like, a villain? So it just changed the whole thought process. So going to matches after that, and people would not actually clap for me because they were upset because I beat Chris Evert. But it was a learning experience for me, and the learning experience more than anything was that you just beat this legend. And then you happen to be a young Black girl that was coming up. People literally did not care. It's like you literally took her out.
Yep. And as we watch her, I'll say this, you don't have to. As we watch her sometimes in the mic in the booth, sometimes it's like, yeah, well, that's what it should have been. So there was that experience. There was 1990, which is one of the biggest years, I would say, of your career. I mean, 88 was big because of the Olympics, right? You won a gold and a bronze in Seoul. But 90, I want to talk about what happened at Wimbledon because there's so much behind the scenes that people don't know. So just getting to Wimbledon, to the finals, how you got there, the matches you won to get to play Martina in the finals. Martina won it. You were runner up at Wimbledon. You did not have an apparel contract going into the final. So you are at Wimbledon, right? The epitome of tennis, going to play your first Grand Slam final against one of your, idols, I would say, in terms of tennis, and Martina Navratilova. And oh, by the way, there's this other thing happening. When you think about that now, like that was a lot. Can you talk about what was happening with that piece?
Well, it was so interesting because I actually literally wore Martina Navratilova's clothes literally up until the point that I was that night before getting ready to play in the finals of Wimbledon. And actually my coach then was Sherwood Stewart, and Sherwood and Martina's coach, and they would get together with all the matches that I was getting ready to play, and we'd strategize. So it was funny that Martina was very helpful in the whole thing of me getting to the finals as well. I just recently learned the story from Phil DiPicciano with Octagon. And he told me the story that it was so difficult to get them. They literally just wanted to give me a contract for that particular match. And he was like, no. And he said that they stood firm, and I ended up getting a contract, for a couple of years after that. But he told me, yeah, that was with Reebok. Yeah. And he literally told me, he's like, Zina, it was tough all the way to the end. And I had no idea. I just remember him coming and saying, him and Patrick McGee saying to me, is like, you got a deal. I'm like, a deal? Like, but you can't, you got to wear a Reebok for the finals. And instantly in my mind, I'm like, what? Like, because most tennis players or most athletes are superstitious. So that was running through my head. But
like, I have not been wearing that. I'm going to change.
So it was very, very interesting.
So when people hear later, when Serena was at the top, when she was, the top player in the world, or, and there was all the conversation about her not getting the level of endorsements as other players. I mean, that's historic, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, that you have to navigate that, or that your team has to navigate that. And like you said, the whole athletes really do get caught up in, I've been wearing this. This is what I've been doing. So now you got to wear a different shoe. You got to, not just the apparel, but now, so all that's got to be different as you go and play. And at that point, the biggest match of your life, it was just a whole lot happening before you get to this match that was the pinnacle of your career. And that was the Wimbledon championship.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny, Kim, people have a tendency to think that all of that was so long ago. And, and you mentioned Serena. I mean, Serena literally had won, I think it was 4 Grand Slams already, and she had not gotten a Fortune 500 endorsement. And I still remember her coming to me when we were at the U.S. Open, and she was so excited. I think it was IBM that was her very first one, and she was so excited, but that she got a Fortune 500 contract endorsement. And so it's funny. Nowadays, it's like people take it for granted, but there were people that literally had to break barriers for a lot of these athletes to get to the point to where they are now.
And I know you've got to go, and so I'm gonna drop some stuff, guys, later. I'm gonna let you hear from Andre Johnson. This was just too good of a conversation to not have. I'll let you hear some stuff from Kim. I'll put it on my timelines, but. You look at the kinds of deals that players are getting now, whether it's the huge Adidas deal that a James Harden got, or some of these deals and those things didn't happen before. But I'm going to go back even further. These free agent deals, they don't happen without a Branch Rickey, right? There's like history matters so much. And I'm gonna share a story. So recently, a couple of weeks ago, there was the Houston Sports Awards, and I said here on this show, I can't believe that Zina's not in the Hall of Fame. that's not Zina, that's me. I can't believe that. And so I will keep saying it. But they have the sports awards, and it's been around, I guess this is the 5th or 6th year. And CJ Stroud, which took the city by storm this past fall, and so did the Texans with CJ and D'Amico and all the work that they did, got a couple of awards. And, he was not there. And so I had a conversation with a couple of media people at a basketball game, a couple of colleagues. and a couple of them are young. One of them wasn't so young, but he's young to the business. And so one guy says, man, I thought he should have been there. It was a missed opportunity. And so the other two guys are like, it's just this Houston. I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's this whole sports awards thing. And so I'm listening to them and I said, well, it's not the, Pro Football Hall of Fame, or, he's from Ohio. He went to Ohio State, the Buckeye Hall. I said, but it is a big deal. I said, because if CJ is who he said he should be, he is, and I believe he is. I believe you are who you are, unless I see something different. How do you not, and how much he loves the city and what he wanted to mean to the city. I don't think he had to come back in town for it, right? But a video, like you could send a 30-second clip.
Yeah.
And so that was a conversation. So we're having, and they're like, those guys that are there, they're old and washed up, but that's a mindset. And these are some media people. So who's telling the stories about the value of our history? So don't tell me that Warren Moon went in this year. Cynthia Cooper went in this year. Lance Berkman, whatever you think about that. But Warren Moon mattered in this market, right? He's a quarterback. He's one of the first to do. I mean, he broke barriers. So to not understand the value of it, and this isn't a knock on CJ Stroud. I'm a CJ Stroud supporter, right? But I'm listening to these guys, and I'm like, this is the problem. You don't really understand. You can't talk about how history matters sometime. And say, well, it's still young, so maybe in 10 years it'll matter more. Well, how does it get to matter more?
Well,
right?
I will say this, because I do sit on the board of the Houston Sports Authority, and I absolutely love being on the board, and I love them, but they do not. And when I say it again, they are not the ones that actually vote on who gets in the Houston Sports Award. I do believe, and I've spoken to our chairman a couple of times about this, and I do believe that we should have a vote on that. And I also do believe that they should have older and current people that vote on who goes on in. And I would say to someone like to Strauss, it's very important. It's very important to know your history, know where you came from. And the Houston Sports Authority the Houston Sports Award, it is very big, because that is the community of sports where people we know people here in Houston, and we know our sports, and we love our sports. So to be honored by them is actually a really big deal. Big deal.
And I agree. And I've had a chance to speak to your chairman too, so I'll keep talking to him. But and so this wasn't CJ Stroud's opinion. This is these media people. And I said, well, the Sports Authority, the Sports Awards, doesn't do a great job of reaching the entire community. I can't argue with that. They do not, right? They could do better at that. But it doesn't mean that there's no value in it, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got to, but all along the way, like, the history really matters. And so speaking of history, before I let you go, your thoughts on Andre Johnson finally getting the nod. He is going to be inducted into the Football Hall of Fame. And this summer, he will be a part of Cooperstown. He got the knock. He was super emotional. And it's just, he's the first Houston Texan to go on the Hall. When you saw that, I mean, I get chill bumps thinking about it. I'm super excited for Dre.
Yes. And finally, yes again. So excited for him. I mean, and just it's a big accomplishment, well deserved, but more than anything, he is literally one of those that has never forgot his community.
Josie says, I'm a Kim Davis fan. This is like, let me say this. I got to come see you, Josie. Josie's a great masseuse. She does this trigger point therapy. It's painful, but if you got some challenges, Josie will hook you up. I just got to get my mind right, Josie. I got to get my mind right. She works some things out. Zina Garrison, we just wanted to, I thank you for talking. It's always good. You and I have these conversations off the mic, offline all the time. I wanted to remind people and give them a chance to hear from, a living legend, right? Who has been there, done it, and continues to do it, from your community work with your foundation for 30 plus years, and what you've meant to tennis. And what some people don't know is there are still people in the world of tennis currently that call Zina. They always picking her brain, right? They always want to know what she thinks, and what about this stroke, or what should I do? And she gives it to them, because that is how much value people that are a part of the sport still have for what she has meant to tennis. So thank you for that, and for all that you do. Anything we should know about coming up, or who should we be watching, and all that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah, I think you've covered it all. But I do have to say this. Love your show. Love the new look. Haven't been I'm a real working person right now. But keep up the good work. And is that book coming soon?
It is. I'm working on it. I have an accountability partner. I had 3 chapters due on Friday. I think she called me before the show. If she's listening, her name is also Kim Edwards Williams. I was rewriting some chapters. I'm getting them. She's like cracking the whip. So yes, it is. I'm super excited about it.
Way to go.
Zina Garrison.
Congratulations. Love you. Keep up the great work.
I'm so excited. I love the applause thing. Thank you, Zina. We'll talk soon. I love you too. All right, everybody. That is tennis legend and icon Zina Garrison. I will let you hear from Andre Johnson and what's happening at training camp. I'm going to drop some of those things in my timeline. But, I wanted to have a conversation with Zina and be able to share it with you guys. And I've been missing her. And yes, that she is my accountability partner. She says she needs a chat. I got you. I'm not hiding, but they're coming. But yes, Zina Garrison, you talk about a true living legend, and it's important. And so when the person that I was talking to a couple of weeks ago was not familiar with Zina, he's not from Houston. He's a sports person. And so I thought, you know what, that we need to keep talking about people like Zina, because you shouldn't do this work, especially being African-American, and not know who Zina is. You shouldn't do the work and not know who she is, period. You definitely shouldn't do this work in this city and not know who she is. And so what can I do to help? And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show. Plus, she's just great for the show, and it's good to talk to her, because we have these conversations all the time. And I'm like, man, I should have recorded it. So anyway, as always, thank you guys for being a part of Chalk Talk. It's always fun to have you in the audience. Thank you for continuing to engage. The book is coming. And hey, remember to make it a great week. I want to remind you, early voting starts today. If you are registered, make sure that you vote. You know me, I never will tell you who you should vote for, but you definitely got to get out and vote. Your vote matters. If it did not, they wouldn't try so hard to keep you from voting. So make sure that you vote. Remember our good friends over at I Love Jinka. You can get it at HEB, or you can go to ilovejinka.com. Kimmy Treats available at Sunshine's Vegetarian Deli, or you can go to kimmytreats.com. Remember, do something kind for yourself, or do something kind for somebody else. Have a great week, everybody. I will see you next Tuesday. I keep in my mind, guys, I don't know what this is. I keep wanting to say beyond the headlines. I'll see you next Tuesday on Chalk Talk. Peace.